right, so welcome to the Tearsheet Podcast, where we explore financial services together with an eye on technology, innovation, emerging models, and changing expectations. I'm Tearsheet Editor-in-Chief, Zach Miller. In today's episode, we're diving into the infrastructure that powers modern lending and the operational headaches that have plagued lenders for years. Lenders juggle multiple data vendors, struggle with point solutions that don't talk to one another, and spend countless hours on manual processes. Meanwhile, borrowers expect Amazon-level experiences when seeking capital. Today's guests are tackling this challenge head-on. Jon Fry is the founder and CEO of Lendflow, a unified embedded finance platform working with over 200 companies to streamline distribution, decisioning, and workflow automation. After building and exiting a micro-lending platform, Jon founded Lendflow in 2019 to enable financial access through technology. And joining Jon is Marshall Lacroix, Vice President of Partnerships at BHG Financial, one of Lendflow's clients. Marshall leads BHG's expansion strategy across loan aggregator platforms, managing a channel that accounts for over a third of BHG's customer acquisition. BHG uses Lendflow's entire platform: Connect for managing distribution partners, Intelligence for embedding credit models and accelerating conversions, and Automate for AI-powered industry mapping. They're even operating a second-look marketplace to monetize declined applicants. So in our show today, we're going to explore how this partnership actually works, the quantifiable impact of AI automation, and why unified platforms are winning over point solutions. We'll also discuss how generative AI is reshaping lending workflows and what's next as embedded finance gets crowded. Welcome to the show, Jon and Marshall.
It's awesome to be here. Appreciate it, Zach. And yeah, excited to dig in here with you both.
Likewise. Thanks for having us,
I'm excited as well. Marshall, we'll start with you. So from BHG's side, what were some of the biggest operational pain points you were facing with distribution partnerships and data management before working with Lendflow?
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, when we started looking at scaling our commercial side of the business from a partnerships perspective about 3 years ago, there was one specific challenge that we needed to address. And that challenge was the industry is moving more to a digitization. You have customers who do not necessarily want to go through a brick and mortar. You have customers who don't necessarily want to go through even a sales rep. And those customers really want to move to a digital flow. And in that attempt to meet the customer where they're at, what BHG needed to do was create an instant offer, create an ability for a customer to come in with a simple application, and in many cases, 3 months banks, provide that to a lender, and many lenders in that case, offers back that were qualified offers to that customer, gave them an indicative idea of what they could actually get approved for. So knowing we needed to solve that, we had a variety of ways we could do so. First, we could build it internally. Second, we could buy some technology that already had it done. Or third, we could partner with a company. So we thought really, diligently through those options. And after kind of thinking through what was best for BHG, we found Lendflow. And ultimately, what that allowed us to do was say, okay, now we can build that credit and underwriting model inside of a third-party technology, in this case, Lendflow, and then task them with integrating into upwards of 20 different supply partners. And what that did for BHG is it allowed us to not take the hurdle of all the work to build that technology in-house. And then secondly, once the technology is built, there's a large effort to go integrate into these supply platforms and can take, in any case, up to 6 to 8 weeks of integration time. Now BHG leans on Lendflow to handle all that. So that increased our ability to go to market and our efficiency in terms of operating the platform over time.
Yeah. And it's come a long way over the years. I know in 2019 when we started, that was just getting to the point where you could, all the technology was far enough along in the lending, all the infrastructure players, all the APIs were starting to come out where we could actually integrate all of them and kind of build this solution that, bridge that gap between all of these different point solutions that typically were just stitched all together. Even farther than when we first started in the space, around 2010, we were still the faxes, and I think DocuSign maybe was a big innovation back there. Marshall, if you remember those days way back then.
Yeah.
So it certainly come a long way since then, but even now to this point, now it's becoming even more important, right? With all of the acceleration of technology and automation. And so, and we're super excited for what's to come. But you know, those big problems existed in 2019 too. It was the distribution. How do we take our products and our offers and place them where our customers are and bring those to them? And then how can we just make the digitize and make the loan process more efficient? And it's been pretty slow, especially compared to consumer, but now it's really starting to accelerate. So it's never been a more exciting time for SMB lending.
Yeah, I
Having covered,
couldn't. I
yeah, go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, couldn't agree more on the SMB side of the house catching up to consumer. I think it's been decades you could go on and apply for a credit card and have an instant decision. It's been at least a decade that you can go on and apply for a personal loan and get an instant decision or have a digital experience from the beginning to the end. And now you're starting to see the SMB side of the market catch up to a lot of that and have technologies enable the customer to move through a digital experience. And for us on our journey, Lendflow is a big part of powering that.
That's awesome. I want to double click on that, but I can also say from our coverage of the space, things also feel like they're accelerating as well as we're applying this to SMB. Marshall, back to you. You mentioned that sort of fateful point where you had a decision to make, build, buy, or partner. What were, at least walk us through some of the reasons why you chose to go with Lendflow?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we didn't take the decision lightly. Like I said, beyond just thinking about what was out in the market, we also had to think, is this a journey we want to embark upon internally and build that technology, which is a big investment. You have to divert development and technology resources in-house, compete that against other projects that you have going on. So once we moved to the point where we knew we did want to take it external, we spoke with a lot of people, both platforms out there that were attempting to solve that problem, close partners and trusted friends of BHG who had opinions on the space. And we got a lot of positive feedback and advice that did point towards Lendflow. So once we actually popped the hood on it, we were really impressed with what we saw. Some of the things we really liked was the fact that they're an API first company. They take an approach to their business that allows you to build in very seamlessly. And they've built a module flow that allows you to pick and choose what makes sense for your business and then architect your flow according to, again, what made sense for your business. So as we did our due diligence, we just continued to validate that their platform did solve our particular use case. And we were also pleased with how the security posture was on their platform. They had a variety of due diligence across multiple vendors and other areas in which they had validated the security of their business, which is very important within lending and being in a regulated space. And we ran the gamut of our due diligence. It took over 6 months to make sure everyone internally kind of vetted out their side of the business and made sure they felt comfortable. But after going through all that, it just surfaced to be a really good solution for BHG and what we were trying to solve.
That's awesome to hear. And John, I want to kick it over to you. We mentioned you have over 200 companies on the platform, and this issue of being able to juggle multiple vendors and integration sounds like an important one for BHD, but also I assume for most of your clients. So in terms of architecting the solution, how did you make sure you didn't fall into sort of like point solution land where it put a lot of the onus of the management onto your clients?
Yeah, I think started just prior to Lendflow was really the key to it because we had tried every solution out there. And then also we worked with all of the lenders too at both prior businesses and, learned what they were using and what challenges they had. And, it seemed like we kept running into the same problems. And then when we would build, we would run into the same wall too. And you seem to learn a lot faster when, you have to experience the pain yourself. And so we got to do a lot of that before we even got into Lendflow. And so we knew that like, hey, every solution, it's very static and it is not very flexible and it's built for one specific use case. And that would be frustrating because you'd get to a certain point and then maybe there's a new innovation that comes out, what means like you want to change from that and you're stuck and you can't, and you kind of have to start over or just be able to be nimble and agile. And that wasn't as important maybe when things were more static, 15 years ago, 10 years ago even. But now that things are accelerating, it's never been more important to like be nimble and agile. And we kind of came in with that mindset, like, hey, we need something that covers everything. There can't just be a bunch of point solutions, because the other problem was that you would lose context and data between all of those solutions, and they weren't a greater sum of all of their parts. They actually were created drag and caused you to lose a lot of things. And then that was important then, but it's far more important now with where things are going with a lot of the new automation tooling and AI, where all of that context is the most important thing. And if you lose that, then you lose a lot of your IP. And so we can't kind of came in with that. Hey, we want these to be point solutions. That's great. We want them to be used on a standalone, and we'll probably get in that later in the conversation, dig in there a little bit. But it also has to be a part of a bigger platform, a bigger machine, and they all have to work together seamlessly, and it all has to be modular. So you can pick and choose which part you want to use them together, use them on a standalone basis, because you usually start in one area and you want to grow from that, and you want to be able to change and adjust. And so all of those principles, those concepts were super important, because we just had run into these challenges for 10 straight years before we launched Lendflow. And that was one of the big reasons we wanted to build what we did.
Yeah, one other thing I'd throw in there too, and we saw this as a positive signal early on, and it's proven itself out through the life of the relationship up to this point, is we know that there isn't a solution for everything, right? And this is, as we said early in this conversation, SMBs new to the digitization of a lending flow and an application and a customer journey. And because of that, there's going to be new problems to solve. And for us, we needed to have confidence that whoever we were going to go forward with had appetite to build those solutions together, to look at problems, to think through what are these problems and what are a variety of solutions to solve them. And Lendflow has been good partners in that, because no integration, no platform, no technology, no system is going to be perfect. And what's more important is do you have a good partnership where they're going to lean in and help you in a timely and efficient manner fix those problems, and frankly build new solutions that think about those problems. And there's a couple examples in our partnership where that's come to fruition.
I want to double click a little bit on Marshall, on your integration work with the Lendflow platform. So maybe get a little more technical here. I'd love to break down how BHD works within Lendflow's intelligence layer, and what the integration looks like, and how much have your conversion rates improved because of that.
Yeah, totally fair. And I think I'll describe that from maybe a 30,000-foot view on the architecture. And really, if you think about an embedded lending model, there's two components to it. You've got the credit and underwriting side, where you've got a variety of knockout logic and decision trees and things that you are really solving for within an underwriting side of the business. And then you've got more of the risk side, where you're using bureau data and a variety of other vendors to make decisions. And how we've worked with Lendflow and architected our system is we have both. BHE works with some of the larger bureaus out there and a variety of other data vendors that support lending. And we were able to seamlessly plug into those with our own credentials into Lendflow and ultimately bring that data in to make those decisions. So we couple that with actually going in and with the support of Lendflow, spending I think it was about 3 months building out all of our complex decisioning logic, so that when a customer comes from supply source A, B, C, or otherwise, they can come in and have all of their application data that 3 months banks hit our orchestration and then deliver a decision back. So again, it just took some time to actually go into the system, think through how do we want to codify all this, orchestrate all this, which vendors do we want to plug into, what is the order of operations we want to run that orchestration, and we spent that 90 days or so actually building that out. And then you fine tune it over time, right? You get a baseline of how it's performing and where you want to enhance and build. But that's how we've built out inside of their platform today. And then on the other side of it, because that's just the decisioning side, the acquisition side is the other side of that same coin where, okay, now you have this credit and underwriting model, you've got these risk scores, you've got an ability to actually create that instant offer. Now you need to go integrate this with all these different platforms. And that's what I'd mentioned earlier. There's 20 different platforms out there that BHE is either interested in working with or is working with today. And Lendflow goes in and they integrate their technology into that supply side. So there is a seamless transaction from them to us with Lendflow sitting right in the middle.
That's right. And the goal is just to be kind of that central hub, the central location that syncs all of the data between the systems, right? And has a lot of those components baked into it so we can execute a lot of those through the Lendflow platform, both for the decisioning, for the credit, but also the customer facing experiences as well. And right, we've done a lot of those integrations, and there's a bunch of other customers and data vendors, and the more that you do them, we have a system and a process to make sure everything's structured properly within the platform, so that it's quick and easy, and we have a systematic way of doing that. You have the data vendor themselves, then you have the endpoint, and then maybe the model, and then beneath that, all of the features. And so you have to make sure when you add it in one place, it's adding it everywhere within the system, and it's easy to sync that data wherever it needs to go at any point during the process. When you want to make sure that the data is wherever you need it to be in BH's system, or within syncing the customer information within the platform that they're integrating into. So again, just something that a muscle that we've built up over time that's been becoming incredibly important, because now that's one of the big value adds that we have. Hey, you have a partner, you can have 1 or 5 or 10, and now you can take them all on. It's not like, hey, well, this quarter we can only do one. It's you can do them all in parallel, and we're really proud of being able to unlock that for BHG and other customers like them.
Yeah, and to comment specifically on two success metrics, one, talking to the efficiency of integrating into the supply side, and then two, talking about the efficiency of those models. In order for a company like BHE or any lender for that matter to do, call it 10 integrations, that would take an enormous amount of work. You'd have to get it prioritized, you'd have to get it put into sprints. Like I said earlier, you need to compete against other initiatives you have going on, and it's a big commitment of time and resource. And the success metric for us when we look at Lendflow is, well, we were able to spin up 10 plus integrations in a really timely manner that would have taken away from a lot of the resource on the BHE side. So that's a big win for us. And the second is, if I think about the customer conversion within the credit side of the house, you've got sales conversion, you've got credit conversion. Pre-Lendflow, where we are today, vetting that customer out, putting them through a model, really scrubbing the file ahead of bringing it into BHG. Previous to having Lendflow in that place, our underwriting approval rates were close to 20%. So that's a lot of customers that are coming in, getting into underwriting, and then 8 out of 10 weren't necessarily walking away with a hard offer of credit. In this new world with Lendflow sitting at the top of the orchestration, we're close to 70% in underwriting. So it's a step change in terms of providing a customer an outcome that gives them, hey, here's what we think you can get, and here's what you actually got, going from that 20 to nearly 70%.
I want to switch gears to AI because that seems to be a very important topic that we're talking a lot about on the podcast recently. There hasn't been a guest in your seats over the past 18 months where AI hasn't come up. And I know you recently started using Lendflow's Automate for AI-powered industry mapping, Marshall. I'm curious if you can share with us some of the numbers, whatever you're comfortable sharing, like how much time are you saving on manual classification and what's the actual ROI looking like?
Yeah, and I agree. AI is definitely a hot topic in not just technology generally, but even within the fintech space as well. And for us, Industry Map was something that we worked with Lendflow to identify an issue that we were having in the funnel. And this is a good example of what I was alluding to earlier in the conversation. And with our existing set of data partners and vendors we were using, there was a pretty large gap of identifying NAICS and SIC codes. And NAICS and SIC codes are simply classifications to say what industry an SMB is in. Is this a trucking industry? Is this a construction industry? Is this a doctor? Is this a dentist? Is it a lawyer, etc.? And it's a huge part of how a lender in the SMB side makes a decision. And the challenge we had was the data providers we were using were not returning an industry code for many of the files that were coming in. And when there's not an industry code returned, we actually had to assign a manual intervention where a human came in and took several steps to actually sort through what is this industry, how do we identify it, and then put that into manually the system, and then ultimately have, again, that instant offer being returned or not. So one of the things we noticed is, okay, that's taking up time, that's taking up human resource and effort that we should leverage automation and technology to do for us. So we, in partnership with Lendflow, said, how can we solve this? And they ultimately built this automation out. And today the coverage is nearly 100% of the time we're actually getting that industry code back. And then beyond just the coverage of the code coming in, the accuracy actually went up quite a bit as well. So now we don't need to assign as many people to manually go find that code. And when the code is actually provided, the trust or efficiency or accuracy of that code is, again, much higher. So that's been a big win for us.
Yeah. It's a really good, it's a really great example. And it was one of the early ones, and it really represents a lot of the problems that were in the SMB space, especially against consumer, and then also why AI is so, perfect for the SMB lending space. Um, Starting with the difference, well, when you are doing a consumer loan and you're looking up someone's credit report, well, there's a social security number, and you go there and you get the credit report from that person. For business, it's quite a bit different. You don't have that in the same way. There's not a federal ID number really that works in the same way. When you go to a KYB provider, they may have multiple records because there's a slightly different business name, and when people were reporting, it came up different. And so now you have to look at consolidating the files and the data and the STIC and the SIC code and whatever else is on those, the NAICS code and whatever else data is on those reports is also, spread out and maybe incorrect in certain places and correct in others. And that makes it very challenging. In the past, it's been very challenging to solve for those problems. And this is where AI can really come in. We've added that as another layer that sits on top of all of the data and the APIs and the interfaces that we have for customers. And this is a perfect use case. Now we can go in and we can take all of this disparate data, and that's what AI is really great at, is just using that and being able to understand of how it can bring it all together, and how they can map it to things like industry codes. And it's also an area where, do you really want to hire someone where all they're doing all day is looking at a piece of paper and trying to find a industry and then map it to a code? It's not really high value work or activity, and it also slow things down and is prone to a lot of inaccuracy and error. It's also an area where AI can do it faster and can do a better job, and you can open up those resources to go work on higher value activities. It speeds up the experience for the customer, and it also lowers costs. And so it's helping on kind of like both ends of the optimization with conversion rates and cost optimization at the same time, which is, prior to AI, something that was really difficult to do. It was really usually a trade-off between one and the other. And now it's not. Now you get both. And so that was a really exciting initial use case, and we saw the impact and the results. And now, now we get to move to the next one. So we're amped up about that too.
John, Marshall shared earlier on in our conversation sort of, BHG's journey with the percentage of approved applications. Tell me about the second look marketplace that you guys have created for declined applicants, and how does it work within Lendflow, and what kind of optimization are we talking about here?
Yeah, definitely. So, well, the second look marketplace is, just to give an overview of what it is. If you go and apply for a loan with a lender and you're not approved, well, historically you're just kind of done there, and it's stopped. So the goal of the second look marketplace is to really optimized for the lender, right? And so providing their customers a better experience, and then for the customer, giving them a better experience, because what they're going to have to do is now apply for another loan and another one. And there's a lot of information asymmetry where they're not going to know where the best place for them is to go apply for a loan. And that can get very frustrating. Now they have 5 different people from 5 companies calling them, and they're getting texted and emailed. And that's a really frustrating experience for them. And sometimes they just throw up their hands and they either give up and try to quit the experience, are turned off from trying to apply for capital in the future as well, and they just lack that muscle in their business, which is very unfortunate because they could really use that as a great tool for growth. And then they also have a bad experience with that lender. So it's again kind of optimizing for both. Now the lender can monetize those. They paid for that. There's less like pressure for them to have to go and brute force and find a new customer. They can keep those customers in their ecosystem. They can provide them value. And now the customer, if they're declined, now they're automatically going to be routed from the other lender, and they can go through the same experience and still see a loan offer, even if it's not from BHG or whatever lender that it is. They can still see a loan offer right there in that experience. And so it'll automatically, what the marketplace does is automatically route based on rules that our customers, like BHG, has defined. So it goes to lenders that are going to be a best fit for that customer. And then again, automates that offer, brings it in, provides the same great experience. Even if BHG can't provide the offer, still provides the same great experience for the end customer. It's kind of an overview of how it works.
Yeah, I would just piggyback a little bit on that too. When I think about the most efficient architecture of a marketplace, you're really trying to prioritize two things. This customer's been declined with your own company. Of course, that's what you want to do first. That's where you're going to give them the best experience, create the most value for your own lending company. But if you can't do that, then it becomes, okay, we want to maintain the best experience, and we also want to create value with this customer that has now been declined by the lender. And ultimately, you could really do three different things. You could A, build out an entire marketplace within your own ecosystem. Go plug into, call it a dozen or even 24 different lenders, send that customer to them directly, get instant offers back, present those instant offers, send them to the customer, give them an exclusive. Or you could, which is a lot of work, right? That's an enormous amount of integrations, just like on the supply side on the inbound customer. This is now flipping the paradigm and saying, now the customer is going outbound, and there's all these integrations that you need to build. The next thing you could do is say, okay, I'm just going to go send this to a single marketplace and I'm going to let them handle everything. Or there's this hybrid option, which Lendflow empowers, which is to say, okay, I want to send the customer into Lendflow's ecosystem. I want to have a seamless integration where they're coming into BHG, they don't get an offer, and now they're going to land in a BHG branded experience, and BHG is going to have complete autonomy and control over where that customer goes. And we're going to make sure, again, it's efficient. It's finding the customer the right lending product based on their credit worthiness. And we're going to make sure that BHG is driving as much value as possible. And what I like about Lendflow is we really look at them on the decline side of the house as our air traffic control, right? If I get that customer inside of Lendflow's ecosystem, we can then, in an API first modular system, come up with intelligent logic to figure out where is this customer best fit. Are we going to go directly to a lender? Is that lender a line of credit provider? Is it a merchant cash advance provider? Is it an SBA provider? Is it a term loan provider? Are we going to send some population of that volume to a marketplace for whatever purposes that may serve? We have that decision-making power and control where we would only ever have that to that level of what I just described if we built it in-house, which is once again a huge investment of time. So if we're able to get that customer into Lendflow with a single integration, with a single API pass, now we have access to an enormous amount of varieties of options we can send that customer, and we can tool it according to the needs of the business. If there are certain partners that drive a lot of value to BHG, we can send that customer to that partner. If there are others that are driving less value, well, we can consider, are they driving value to BHE? Is this a good option for the customer? Yes or no. We can then make those decisions. All of that can be powered on the Lendflow platform and drives a lot of efficiency for us when managing the program.
That's a
Yeah, it's
powerful
been really
explanation. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, John?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see, like what that ability to optimize and route can do, because it's become a pretty big, actually, optimization channel as well for BHG's own in-house products, because of the partnerships they've been able to build with lenders on the other side. Two lenders have two different credit boxes, and they both have great products, and now they can set up the rails to make sure when they receive a customer that's a good fit for the other partner, they can immediately send her there. Then there's a lot of reciprocation that's able to happen where BHG can also efficiently grow their own term loan product. So that's been really exciting to see too.
Yeah, the theme really to highlight here, I think, if I were to just boil it all into one idea, it's a single integration, right? Whether the lead's coming in or the lead's going out. From our perspective, it's a one-to-one relationship versus a one-to-many relationship. And when we have a one-to-one relationship that opens up a one-to-many relationship, that's really powerful for us because we only need to manage that one integration. We only need to build that one integration, and then we leverage their platform, again, inbound or outbound, to access this bigger variety of the ecosystem.
I want to zoom out a bit. I'm getting to that point in the conversation where, John, I want to hear about Lendflow's like competitive differentiation strategy. We've been covering embedded finance at Tearsheet for years, and it's become super crowded. And I'm curious how your unified approach with the Connect, Intelligence, and Automate products, like how that differentiates you from point solutions or the big players trying to build similar platforms.
Yeah, definitely. yeah, it's we've come a long way since 2019. I think that was really the year around in 2020 where embedded lending. I think you had every company is going to be a fintech company, and I think again it pulls back from our prior experiences where I think when everyone saw the opportunity, it was immediately, oh, well, we're going to become the embedded lender, and there were a lot less that became, hey, we're going to become the infrastructure.
Mhm.
And so when we looked at the problem, we had already had experiences for a few years of trying to become the embedded lender and building those solutions and talking to customers. And so we kind of felt, well, there's a lot of challenges with being a financial services company, right? And if everyone's going that direction, well, and we know the kind of the roadblocks and like the friction points of making that happen. There's of course pros and cons, but there wasn't really anyone taking the infrastructure approach and really focused purely on the technology without the misaligned incentives of also trying to grow a lending book and a financial services company. They're both incredibly challenging things to do
Yeah.
on their own, and when you're trying to do both of them at once, and how the incentives become misaligned as you're going along and trying to grow and scale and manage credit risk and build technology, we felt it was not the best way to create the most value in the lending space and solve the really, really hard problems that we saw. And so we decided, hey, first, let's just stay purely focused on the infrastructure, only on the technology, and let's enable lenders to become embedded lenders. They already are great at running a lending business. Let's empower them, but they may not be great at technology. That's fine. That's not their business. We want to build the technology to partner with them, to enable them to take the great products that they've built and the specialization that they have, and then go out there and become embedded lenders. And so that was the original thesis. And it started with, a narrow point solution. But again, over time, we knew this was going to be a holistic platform, and all of the data and all the different components had to work together. And so we built it in that way where we really built one at a time of those point solutions over the years. And I think that's the same way it really works with our customers, where they don't usually come in initially saying like, "Hey, we need a solution for everything." Usually, especially if you're established, you're going to have you already have solved some of those problems. You probably just have one or two like pressing needs right then. And so we also built it so that they can come in and, just like we did, start with something more narrow scope with the point solution, but then as they we earn trust and we deliver and provide the value and solve those problems and collaborate with their team, then we can move from one to the next. And that's how it's really gone with BHG and all of our customers. We start with something narrow and then we grow it from there, and we look for the next pressing, biggest problem to be able to solve. And then all of a sudden, you're operating and you have everything synced into that one system. Like Marshall said, you're going into one API, but you also have all of that data and that context in one place. And now for the future, that's perfectly set up for building AI tooling that needs all of that context to really be great. Touching on that subject, if you apply for application and then you call back in and the AI agent's like, who are you? Nice to meet you. It's like, well, we just talked 5 minutes ago. What about my loan application? If you don't have all the context from all the prior applications, all the prior credit pulls, all the prior loan offers, all the prior scenarios, then you can't really build the agents to be as intelligent as you want. And that's why we're excited about NAICS and kind of growing from there into other AI tooling, because now all of the foundation there is set to do that very, very well. And that's really exciting for the coming years, and something we're diving into right now.
Marshall, how about you? What are you looking for to get out of this relationship as it matures for you and BHG in general?
Yeah, the biggest thing we want to do is continue to build the program, grow it responsibly, carefully, efficiently, and that means bringing on more partners, right? And more integrations, larger relationships that we're super excited about, leveraging the integration with Lendflow and plugging it into additional supply. So that's going to be a big focus over the next 12, 18, 24 months. And the second thing is just continuing to look at the existing architecture and saying, how can we make this more intelligent? How can we make it more efficient? And how can we remove any human intervention? We've gotten the flow to a great place today, but there's absolutely areas to improve. So there's a couple ideas and pieces of technology that we're collaborating with Lendflow on to actually accomplish that, to make it more so that the customer can come in and get all the way up to the last point of the funnel that we want them to be at, which in our case would be a hard offer of credit, so that they ultimately can then, get to the closing stage. And we're identifying all of those stages today to say, what can we do to facilitate that digitally and give more control to the customer? So that's where the focus is going to be. It's going to be twofold: bring on more partners, drive more supply into the system, grow the program responsibly, reasonably, and efficiently, and do so by creating more efficiency as well.
John, I have one last question for you before we go. You've described an incredibly complex ecosystem of workflows and processes, not just for a single customer, but for the platform that you've built. Given some of the recent technological developments in the industry, like Gen AI, like we spoke about before, how do you think Lendflow's clients' workflows will evolve through this partnership with your firm going forward?
Yeah, I think that the core workflow, you know, could be the same. It could adjust. There's just going to be, like Marshall just touched on, more opportunities to make things more efficient within that workflow. Those workflows contain all of the data. They're tied to a customer profile that has all the prior workflows associated with that business. And now you can build all of this new automation on top of it to provide a better customer experience and to make the process more efficient. And then also to take that entire experience and place it anywhere, go and put it where the customers are, and it's going to start to create experiences that are magical for the customer relative to what it's been over the last 15 years since the industry has really grown. So that's really exciting. I think there's a chance and an opportunity. Hey, SMBs been so far behind consumer. Well, now I think we're going to be able to level the playing field. Maybe SMB will even, take the lead. We'll see. We're certainly pushing for that, but there's a lot of opportunity to do it because a lot of the problems that we have to solve in SMB, don't get as much attention or just aren't needed in consumer. So we're excited about looking through the entire workflow and looking for any points of inefficiency or any points where we can provide a better experience for the customer, and then just continuing piece by piece to build onto that. And I think when we get to where we want to go, what we're envisioning together with our partners, it's going to create really hyper efficient experiences for the customer. They're finally going to have a great, loan acquisition and onboarding process that they can go through, and we're going to be able to drive down rates to be so much less expensive and like such better terms compared to what customers are used to as this all comes to fruition. So that's something we're really, really excited about.
I think that's a great place to end our conversation. Use the word magical in terms of the lending experience. So I really appreciate that. Jon Fry of Lendflow,
Right.
Marshall Lacroix of BHG Financial. Thanks for joining us on the Tear Sheet podcast today.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate having us.
Enjoyed it, Zach. Yeah, appreciate you.